Yeah, so I'm Vanessa and
I'm Jun.
So I'm going to first talk about the cycles that we students go through in university, starting with our first year. And this quote just talks about how our first year experience is really vital because this is the year that sets our overall university experience. So it's important to have that support and that positive mentality from the beginning. However, university is a completely different learning environment than we previously had, where we have been spoon-fed with information by our teachers. They're always like on our back, making sure that we do our homework. While here, that we have more freedom to do what we want to, and not a lot of students know how to deal with that freedom and deal with being an independent learner, which I'm going to talk about more later on. So when we have all this freedom and also all this responsibility, sometimes we crash. As seen here, we crash because we want to keep up with our schoolwork. At the same time, we want to be social. A lot of us is doing our finance for the first time, and a lot of us want to be healthy, but we don't know how to cook pasta, so we eat McDonald's every day and drink a lot of Red Bull. All these thoughts and feelings, and we lose focus of why we're actually here. Which happened to me my first year. I crashed and I ended up having to retake. And over the summer, I needed to pep talk with myself and say that, okay, when I come to my second year, I need to learn how to be that independent learner. I need to learn how to manage my time and be more strict with myself, because I took sort of advantage of all this freedom and I didn't really know how to deal with that. Eventually, we all reach this final stage where we become a professional. We go out to the real world out there, and we feel proud about ourselves. At least that's what we hope to do. However, before we reach that stage, there are a lot of challenges that we go through, which we're going to talk about today. And so what the Student Innovation Lead group did is that we sat down and we discussed what are one of the common challenges that students face during university. And so we decided to, we listed out all the challenges and we decided to make a survey. And we asked, I think it was around 60 students that did that survey, and they could pick as many options as they want as to what kind of challenges they face. And this was mostly economics and finance and a little bit of politics students, because that's like the people we know and that's what we do. And the percentage down there is like, so for example, too many coursework, there was around like 58% that pressed that too much coursework was their main challenge. And we also have independent learning, workload, time management, access to university resources, language, incompetent group mates, but that's probably because some people just don't like group work, feeling that the university doesn't live up to their expectations, and others. However, we asked people to specify, but they didn't really specify what they meant with others, so I don't really know. But what I'm going to focus on today is independent learning, which ties into time management, and also coursework and feeling that the university doesn't live up to their expectation. So this is a percentage from our survey of students feeling, 30% feeling independent learning was hard for them, 58% that coursework, and I can see 47% feel that the university doesn't live up to their expectations. So with independent learning, a lot of people struggle with the concept of being an independent learner. Like, what does it mean to become like being an independent learner? How do you learn how to learn? So we feel like the university is really important, especially in the first year, that we understand this concept so we can use that, apply that in the second and third year, and help us to establish way to approach the module the best way and to be effective with our time. Because what a lot of students tend to do, and I found myself guilty, is that instead of understanding the concept, we just memorize, for example, the theory, memorize what it means, what it says, but not really understanding what it means and how we can apply that. So we feel like independent learning is one thing that the university can help us become, especially during our first year. And then with the workload, this is what a lot of students feel like they are, especially during this time. And of course, we expect university to be hard. We expect it to have a lot of workload, a lot of stuff to do. However, sometimes the deadlines are just set in really weird times. For example, my politics friends, they had 3 different essays set on the same day, and the essays were like 3,000 words each. So sometimes it's really hard to divide your time and manage your time to not only do your assessments but also do your exams. Like yesterday, I was in the library and one of the students, he asked another student, like, have you started revision yet? And he was like, no, I can't because I still have to do my essays and my assessments. So it would be better if there could be some sort of transparency as to when we set this deadline so it doesn't all clusters around one specific time. And lastly, not a lot of students know where the theory and the skills they learn can be applied to real life. Especially, and it's really important to know that, especially now that we pay more and we expect a lot when we come into university. But however, as we experience all these challenges, we started questioning, well, why is it that I'm here where I could be out there getting some practical work instead? But we're still being told that having a degree is the most important thing. But it at the same time doesn't live up to what we expect. So we feel like it's important that there's more focus on our employability skills and what we actually get out of the degree. So I want to ask you lecturers, how do you think that we could the best way we could advertise their employability skills and really make students see the value in what they're doing? Like, if anyone has any interest.
Does anybody think that we might be able to better inform the students about the value that we provide?
Okay. So, hi. I'm Helen Bruce. I work at the moment in the Alliance Manchester Business School in the doomed Faculty of Marketing. I have been here for nearly 3 years, and in my first year here, I was lucky enough to get involved in what was, I think, is still called the Academic Advising Programme. Do you still have that?
Yeah, we still.
Forgive me, I've been off on mat leave as well, so I'm maybe a little vague. But at the end of that first sort of semester, or possibly the first year with those students, they have to go away and do research into what employers look for, and then they have to present to each other on what the employers look for, what the skills are that they therefore need, and then link that back to what they're doing in their degree programme. Now, the feedback I had from the students at that point was, actually, now we see that this is important and we wish we paid attention to these advisory sessions in greater detail. So I suppose I'm going to feed the question back, if that's all right, and say, so what should we have done it earlier in the year maybe? You know, should we do it repeatedly throughout the year? And in fact, have you had an experience like that? Did it work for you? And if not, what was wrong with it, I suppose?
Well, I did a report where we were to actually interview employers and ask them what kind of skills that they expect from graduates. And by doing that, by having this practical assessment, I feel like I learned a lot by actually doing the work and reaching out instead of just reading and writing about it.
Yeah.
And they told us that by doing practical assessments, you are prepared for what you will be doing in the workforce as well. So I think that's like one way.
Yeah. So we might be getting it partly right, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So more of that.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, so we run 2 employee showcases just for my students. No one else is allowed in the room. And I bring employers in, and basically the work that the students do offer a client and industry. So the first year, the first week they come in, I have the client waiting, and they've got to interview them to understand what the project is about, and then go and deliver that project and then present it back to the employers. And then we flip the day, so we have 30 employers looking at the students' work, and then the rest of the afternoon, the students go after the employers and network with them. It all ends in a pub somewhere in the city centre. But it gets them insight. And is that the kind of thing that you're talking about you want more of? Or?
Yeah, for example, I think that will be a quite viable solution for that, to make students realize that what they learn, the theory, is also as useful and it could be applied to the practice that they do.
So is it because students at the time when they're learning the theory, they don't realise that it's actually, they don't believe the lecturers when they say, oh, this is really applied in industry? Is that or you just can't see how it's applied in industry?
I think it's more you can see, and also some theories is like you learn it, but then you're also being told, but well, this is not really what's happening in real life, but it's just the theory of it. So you're just like, well, why are we reading about it then? Sort of. But I feel like it also depends on what you do. Maybe like for business, it's easier to have those more practical than in economics. So we learn a lot of theory. So I think it depends. Yeah. Any more thoughts? Okay. Then we'll move on to June. Who's gonna talk about the international.
I'll choose this. Alright, so I gotta talk about the challenges international students face. I'm from China and I'm now in my second year of studying accounting and finance. So I think the biggest challenge for us so far is the language barrier, because when we first come to this country, the first thing we need to do is talk to people, and like we need to buy things, like communicate with others, make friends, and all these kind of things. We need to use English skills. So for me, like all my past experience, education experience was in China, so I don't really have much experience to speak English and like use English as my daily communicator. So for me and other like major non-English speaking country student, we feel like language barrier is the biggest one. So we try to find out some help from language center. But the thing for language center is we need to enroll a course, but we need to pay extra fee about £33,000, and which is too much for our financing. So, what am I talking about? Can I take a brief? So it's quite expensive for us to afford the expenses for the course. And after we enroll the course, we need to the lecturer will pick up will put us in a classroom, but it's not divided into different levels, which means like all the beginners level, intermediate level, and advanced levels are in the same course. So we didn't get the same level of teaching. So that may put us off in some kind of way. And thirdly is about academic writing and reading. So for me, the most important thing about academic writing and reading was on exam. So most of the time when I was in exam, that kind of intense that kind of intense or scary atmosphere make me feel quite kind of concentrate on my exam. So when I'm trying to like answer my questions, it's hard to get all the things I'm learning in the lecture put into the exam sheet. So sometimes we just get like lower marks than what we should get.
So do you find that is sometimes the structure of the question or the way you expect it to answer the question is different?
No, I don't think it's a structured thing, because actually we did all the supply reading and all the like revision things before the exam. But when we're actually doing the exam, because time is limited, so we want to like try to put all the things in the exam paper. But sometimes it's just hard because after all, it's not our first language, and we'll try to like translate it and like put it in exam paper, and sometimes it's just too hard. Yeah, too much work. So another thing I think is really important for us is academic terminology. So before I came to uni, I know my English is a problem. So, and I know that there are going to be a problem for me to understand the lecture. So before I came to uni, I tried to research online about other academic terminology that might be covered in the lecture. but there were too much. I don't really know where to start. So I think it would be great if lecturers can provide us a little bit like document about all the terminologies that might be covered in the exam, not in the lecture, so we can have a little bit of brief understanding about the terminologies, so we can have a little bit better understanding of the course. So sometimes when we're in the lecture, like first time, myself in my first lecture here, I only understand like 40% of the lecture because every time the lecturer says something, sound like academic terminology, I don't really understand. I need to stop it. I need to stop and like stop listening and like check my dictionary, which like stopped me thinking about what lecturers are talking about. So and then after lecture, when I back to my room, I need to listen to the broadcast and try to understand and search online, which is too much effort. So I think it would be great if lecturers can provide us terminologies beforehand. A great example is from the financial statement analysis course. The lecturer provided us a document which contains like briefly of all the terminologies that will be covered in lecture. So it's easier for us to understand the lecture.